Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Samhar Alouch. I'm second year medical student. And today we are going to talk about one of the most important lectures, which is pulmonary gas exchange. And also we are going to talk about pulmonary circulation. So without any further ado, let's start. First, these are my contacts. If you want to ask me some questions or whatever, you can talk to me here. And please feel free to stop me anytime you want. We will have some checkpoints where we stop and solve some questions, but yani, feel free to stop me anytime you want. And best of luck on your TBL tomorrow. And let's start. So first, let's orient ourselves a little bit of what's happening here. We have normally, yani, we have the bronchus, then it divide itself to two, then it keep dividing till we reach the alveoli. Okay, on both sides. Now, at one side, wait a minute. Yeah, at one side, we will have the capillaries coming from the pulmonary artery coming from the heart. It divides itself to pulmonary capillaries and it meets the alveoli to get the oxygen and send the carbon dioxide. So now when we breathe, we actually inhale oxygen. Hello? Yeah, when we breathe, we inhale oxygen. This oxygen will go all the way to the alveoli. So now in the alveoli, we have oxygen and we exhale carbon dioxide. Let's focus on oxygen now. Now, oxygen is at the alveoli. We inhaled it and now it needs to get transport to the blood capillaries. And from the blood capillaries, it will go and it needs also to be transported from the blood capillary to the muscles, let's say, of the hand. This transport mechanism is actually a passive diffusion. So here it says the exchange of O2 and CO2 between the air and blood and between the blood and the tissue occur by process of diffusion. And this is a passive process. What does that mean? It means that if we have the blood capillary and the alveoli, the oxygen will just pass. It doesn't need any active transporter or the transporters and these things. No. We don't need any channels. It literally just pass the membranes and go to the blood. And also from the blood capillary to, from the blood capillary to the organ itself, it just pass. It is a passive diffusion. And the lung structure is well suited to high rates of diffusion because that's what it is. It just needs to diffuse from the alveoli to the capillary and from the capillary to the organ. Is it clear? And it's just an introduction. So now let's talk about what's actually happening. We have the alveoli, and this is O2 coming from the alveoli, and we have the blood capillary. This O2 need to, as we said, passively diffuse. So now it needs to pass to reach here. When it passes, it needs to pass several membranes or several gates. Let's see. First, it needs to pass this membrane. Then it needs to go in this space. It's an empty space. It needs to go through it. Then pass this membrane. And we know that O2 needs to bind to a red blood cell's hemoglobin. So then we have now a red blood cell. It actually needs to pass through its membrane and then bind to the hemoglobin of this red blood cells. So as we said, O2, when it comes from our inhalation, it needs to pass membranes, then pass the membrane of the red blood cells, and finally bind to the hemoglobin of that red blood cells. All of these membranes that it needs to pass are called what's called exactly air-blood barrier. Air-blood barrier. From the air, then to the blood barriers. So it's barriers that separate the air from blood. What are these barriers? So first we said, as we said, we have O2. It's coming from our inhalation. First, it passes the alveolar membrane. So first, we have the alveolar membrane. That's the first membrane in this barrier. Then it needs to go in this space, which is called the interstitial space. Then it needs to pass the capillary membrane, which is the endothelium of the capillary. Then it needs to go through the plasma of this capillary. So fourth, we have the plasma. Then it needs to pass the membrane of the red blood cells, RBCs, or membrane. Then it needs to go through the plasma of the red blood cells. Then it's going to bind the hemoglobin. So now we have 7 components. These are the components that the oxygen need to pass to reach its destination. First one is alveolar epithelium, then the tissue interstitium, then the capillary endothelium, then the plasma layer, then the red cell membrane, then the cytoplasm of the red blood cell, and then the hemoglobin. It binds to it. So all of these membranes that the oxygen need to pass are called air-blood membrane. Is it clear? Okay. And this is electron microscope picture of it. We have the membranes. This is not important, so just skip it. So this is the last time I will say this. Oxygen needs to pass from the alveoli to the capillaries. It needs to pass several membranes. These membranes together, we called it air-blood barriers. And these are the 7 membranes. And yes, you actually need to memorize them. And they are easy. And it's just membrane, plasma, membrane, plasma, membrane, plasma, then hemoglobin. Okay. Now, all of this is still introductory. Let's talk about the real stuff now. We have the alveoli, as we said, the oxygen enter, and we have the capillary. Now, from the cardio part, you know that if this is the heart, and it receives blood from the veins to the right atrium, then to the right ventricle, and then it sends this blood through pulmonary arteries. This blood is not oxygenated, so its oxygen level is too low. Actually, it's 40. It has a pressure of 40, but let's just keep that. It's not important now. This blood is not oxygenated, or its oxygen level is too low. Now it enters this capillary, and its oxygen level is still too low. And when we inhale, we actually are getting oxygen from the air. So the oxygen level here in the alveoli is too high, and here it's too low. Okay, so now we have actually a pressure difference. You took in one of the past sessions before that if you have an oxygen molecule that it's not bound to hemoglobin, just an oxygen molecule and another oxygen molecule, it's going to push through the walls, and it will also push itself, that it will cause a pressure. So now here we have a high pressure, high PO2, because we have a high amount of oxygen that's not bound to anything. But in the capillary that it's going to the alveoli, we have a very low PO2 because we barely aslan have O2. We don't have O2 that much. So we have a low PO2. This high pressure difference is what caused the passive diffusion. It's the cause that oxygen go from alveoli to the capillary. It's literally similar to what you took in foundation when you have a high Na sodium outside and low Na inside, that it go from outside to inside. Here we have a very high amount of oxygen in the alveoli and very low amount of oxygen in the capillary. So the oxygen will go passively diffuse from the alveoli to the capillaries because of the high pressure difference. Okay, so due to the high pressure difference, oxygen will go from the alveoli to the capillaries. It will passively diffuse in this direction, and it will not go from the other way around because the pressure here is so high and the pressure here is too low. That's why it will pass. That's why it's aslan move from the alveoli to the capillary. Is it clear? Okay. So now this is the driving force, what caused it to move. But remember, in foundation, you took that Na go from the high to low concentration, but that's not just it. we have the membrane, it needs to be permeable to it. It needs to have like channels or at least permeable to it to move. And that's why having the pressure difference is not enough for oxygen to move from alveoli to capillary. We need other things. And these other things is what makes the diffusion law or Fick law. In the diffusion law or Fick law, we are measuring the amount of oxygen that goes from the alveoli to the capillaries, the amount, like literally 300 or 700 oxygen that goes from the alveoli to the capillary. How do we measure this? We measure it through this equation, V, which is the amount of the gas that will go from alveoli to capillary, equals the pressure difference, which is the pressure in the alveoli minus the pressure on the capillary. This is the pressure difference, is the driving force that what will cause oxygen to go from here to here. And we multiply it by D. D is the, let's say, the opposite of resistance. It's the ability to go from here to here, okay? This D has many things, okay? So let's start. Now the real session starts. This is the equation. V gas is DL multiplied by the pressure difference. The pressure difference is the driving force. The D is the ability of the gas to go from here to there. What is D? D is four things. Four things play a role in the ability of gas to go from alveoli to the artery. The first one is something called the, it's just D small, which is the gas coefficient. It's a number that is for each gas differ, okay? So it's always, if it's an equation, it's going to be given. So like oxygen has a number, carbon dioxide has a number. So this is the gas coefficient, is a number exclusively for this gas, and that's it, okay? Then we have something else, which is the solubility. Solubility is related to if the gas is hydrophobic or hydrophilic, how much it can go through the membrane and these chemical stuff. Solubility, it's also play a role in the D, the ability of the gas to cross. Third, we have the surface area. Surface area is like, I have one alveoli and one capillary, or I have one alveoli and several capillaries. If I increase the capillaries, I'm increasing the surface area of the exchange, and I'm increasing the D, the ability of the gas to go from alveoli to capillaries. And finally, I have T, and T is the thickness of the blood vessel itself. Like if I have a blood vessel that its epithelium is that thick, or I have a blood vessel that its epithelium is this thick, if it's so thick that the gas need to pass through this whole thing, this means that it has a low DL. And the important part is that DL, the ability of the gas to pass through, is directly proportional to the surface area. So if I increase the surface area, I'm increasing the DL too, the ability of the gas to pass. And it's also proportionate to the solubility. The more soluble the gas, the more DL we have, the more ability of the gas to pass. And finally, it is also directly proportional to the gas coefficient, but that's not very relevant because each gas has its coefficient and these things, and it can't increase or decrease. But it is indirectly proportionate to the gas thickness. So if I increase the capillary thickness, I am decreasing the DL. So if I increase the thickness, the DL, the ability of the gas to pass, must decrease, okay? And that's what is this about. It's DL equal D alpha A and divided by T. That's why T, if it's increased, the DL, it will decrease. Is it clear? I have took so much time on this, but I hope it's clear because he usually gives so much question about this. I want another clear. That's only one person. Okay. Okay. So now, yes. In oxygen, if we compare the oxygen solubility is alpha, and if we compare the carbon dioxide solubility, which is also alpha, we find that the carbon dioxide solubility is 20 times higher than oxygen. 20 times higher than oxygen means that the carbon dioxide D, the ability to pass, is also 20 times higher. So now if I have a pulmonary problem, like an obstruction or something, which one do you think it will have the problem? Like we will have low level of it, oxygen or carbon dioxide? If we have a problem in the diffusion or obstruction or anything, which one we will think that we will have problem in, oxygen or carbon dioxide? No. Yes, actually, yeah, you said oxygen. Alhamdulillah. Yes, we will have it in oxygen. Why? Because carbon dioxide have a solubility of 20 times higher than oxygen. So no matter what we do, if we did an obstruction or we decreased the surface area or we increased the thickness, no matter what we do, we can't actually decrease the carbon dioxide DL that much because it has it is 20 times higher than oxygen. But oxygen is 20 times lower than carbon dioxide. So if we actually increase the thickness area or decreased the surface area, it will really play a major difference in oxygen. And yes, you got it right. And so now, if I have this equation, the amount of the gas that's passing equals the DL, the ability of the gas to pass, multiplied by the pressure difference. Can I actually know the DL? Can I actually calculate it? Yes. How? By dividing it on the pressure difference. So now if I divided V gas by the pressure difference, I can actually know DL. So now we know that DL is actually V gas on the pressure difference. Okay? Is it clear? It's any math. And it's literally this equation here. So now let's actually calculate it. Now I have DL equals the V gas on the pressure difference, which is P1 minus P2. I know the V gas because when I intube you and give you a specific amount of oxygen, like 300, I know that the V gas that I gave you that it should pass is 300. Okay, so V gas is knowable because we can measure it. Yes, the question just said the DL, what does it mean, the diffusion capacity? Yes, actually, yes, this one. If you are asking about this one, this is the coefficient. If you are asking about the D capital L, yes. So now let's continue. The 300 V gas, I gave it to you. So I know that the V gas is 300, so it's knowable. And you took something about, I don't remember what's the machine, sphygmometer or something like this. It can actually measure the V gas. So now I know the V gas. It's like 300, let's say. And this is a blood, okay? This is the alveoli, and it has the B1. And this is the blood capillary, and it has B2. I gave you the gas. I gave you 300, so I can actually measure its pressure. You also took it by another machine that actually measured the pressure in the alveoli. So I actually can know the pressure of the alveoli. So let's say it's 100. The problem is, what is B2 for oxygen in this blood? This blood has just came from the pulmonary artery and entered the capillaries, okay? And it has, let's say, 0, okay? Let's say it has 0, BO2. The pressure of it is 0 because it has no oxygen. Now it's entered, it gained some oxygen here, so it became BO2 equals 10 because it just got some oxygen. And here it got more oxygen, so it became 20. Here it got more oxygen, it became 40. Here it got more oxygen, it became 80. Which number of these I should use? That's the problem with oxygen. We don't know which number of these we will use because once it enters, it's 0. Then it's become 10. Actually, it's not 0, it's another number. We will talk about it later, but let's say it's 0. Then it's become 10, then 20, then 30, then 40, then 100. Which number should we put? at P2. Which one is the oxygen pressure in the capillary? We don't know. That's why we can't actually calculate DL of oxygen using this equation simply. Okay, because we can't actually know B2. But what shall we do? We must calculate it. Now, let's talk about another gas. Now, we said we can't calculate oxygen. Why? Because it is the B2, we don't know it. And it's impossible to be known because at the beginning of the capillary, it's something, at the end of the capillary, it's completely different thing. So we can't calculate it. So what shall we do? Let's talk about another gas. It's called carbon monoxide. It's a poisoned gas. And if you inhaled it very much, you will most likely die. So carbon monoxide, what's special about carbon monoxide? I said, if you have a gas, O2, O2, O2 here, and it's actually pushing the walls and pushing against itself, it causes a pressure. But if it is bound to a protein like hemoglobin, it's not moving, so there is no pressure. And that's what's special about carbon monoxide. It has a high affinity to hemoglobin that once it's entered the capillary, it will bind to hemoglobin and it will cause a no pressure. So PCO is 0. What does that mean? When I have an alveoli and I have the capillary and CO enters and it actually passed to here, it bind to hemoglobin immediately. And once it binds to hemoglobin, it will have no pressure. So BCO is 0 here because it's bound to hemoglobin. So now I know in CO situation only that if I put V gas on B1 minus B2, I gave you, let's say, 5 CO, or let's say 100. I gave you 100 CO. I know what I gave you, so I know V gas. And I can measure the pressure in the alveoli because it's constant, okay? And so I know that, let's say, the pressure in the alveoli is 20. But what is the pressure in the capillary? We said CO, once it enters the capillary, it binds to hemoglobin. So it will have a pressure of 0. So now we can put 0 here. No matter what we move or where we go, CO will bind immediately to the hemoglobin and it will have a pressure of 0. So now we can calculate the CO and we actually can say 100 divided by 20 equals 5. And now we know that the DL, the diffusing capacity of CO is 5, let's say, okay? But first, is this clear? Okay. So CO, we can calculate it because once it enters, it binds, so it will have a BCO of 0, not O2, not like O2 where it change one back and forth. We are talking about BCO and it is 0, the pressure of it in the capillary. That's why we can calculate it. But CO is a poison gas. Why do I care about the DL of the CO? It's actually because scientists made many researches and found that the DL of CO and the DL of O2 is actually related. How? The DL of O2 is actually the DL of CO multiplied by 2.3. So if I found that the DL of CO is actually 10, then the DL of O2, I can actually calculate it. I might multiply 10 by 2.3. So now I have 23. So now we finally found a way to calculate the DL of O2. First, we couldn't because the B2, the pressure in the capillary, is unknown because it increased. So we can't know which number. But once we calculate the DL of CO and we multiply it by 2.3, we actually can find the DL of O2. So now if he brings, and I remember this was a question in our TBL, or the finals somewhere, it was, which of the following gases is used to measure the DL of O2? And the answer is CO, because CO is actually measurable because it's the pressure in the capillary is 0. And if we multiply the DL of CO by 2.3, we actually can find the DL of O2. And that's how we calculate the DL of O2. And he may actually bring an equation, and you need to calculate the DL of CO and then multiply it by 2.3 and then find the DL of O2. Is this clear? This is very important. Okay. We finished the math parts. Yani, now we can have a good part. Yani. Okay. And I actually love going to another page and drawing, then go back to the slides. Are you guys okay with this? And do you like this way? I love math too. والله. بس يعني I'm not going to read each part of this slide because I hate reading. يعني even Dr. Shams hate reading, so I just hate everything I say is written here. But يعني I will not read it. I will just explain on the other page. Repeat what exactly? يعني 22005. You are in my batch. Okay, it's a direct message. Anyway, let's continue. Normal factors that influence diffusing capacity. Let's start. So now we finished the math part. Let's go to the good parts. We said that DL, the diffusing capacity, is equal to the solubility, the coefficient, the surface area, and divided by the thickness. Okay? Now, what are the factors that play roles in changing the diffusing capacity? By the way, all of these, instead of writing V gas equal these things in a very complicated way, then multiplied by B1, B2, these things are not measurable in normal human because solubility is we need to take the gas and measure it. The coefficient is just a number that it's constant. The surface area, you need to take the lung of the person and dissect it. It's impossible to be measured. And the thickness, you also need to take the artery of the person and dissect it. So these things are not measurable normally. So all of them together, we mix them and make them DL. Okay, that's why all of them are put as DL. We don't put this whole thing because all of these things has one common thing, that it's not measured normally. Okay, so now, wait a sec. DL is made of 4 components, as we said. DL is actually solubility, coefficient, surface area, and thickness. So now, what are the things that affects DL? Let's start by one. First, exercise. If you, normally, this is the lung, okay? Normally, we have capillaries going to the lung. This is a capillary, this is a capillary, this is a capillary, this is a capillary. Some of these capillary are actually used, so it's thick. But some of these capillary are not used. It's just closed like this, one layer closed, okay? Because we don't need that much of blood to go to the lungs. So now this is a capillary that is full of blood, and this is a capillary that it's closed, okay? If you exercise, your heart will just pump more and you will have more blood going to the lung. When the blood will go more to the lung, these capillaries that were closed will open, okay? Because it was closed, because we don't need that much of blood. But now we are exercising, we are doing something. Blood is going to the lungs. So now the capillaries that were closed will be opened. So now this is called recruitment. We have a capillary that it's open and another capillary that's open, and capillary is closed and capillary is closed. After we exercise, we have recruitment. We are making more capillaries work. Okay, so we open more capillaries. When we are opening these capillaries, we are increasing the surface area. And if we increase the surface area, we are increasing the DL, the diffusing capacity. Okay? And now, this is the first thing that affects the diffusing capacity, exercise. How does it affect it? It increases the diffusing capacity. Okay? So now, if he asked you, which of the following increase the diffusing capacity, you choose exercise because it will cause recruitment, it will increase the surface area, and it will increase DL. Okay? Another mechanism is that this is a blood vessel. Hello? and it has blood. Once I train and exercise, I will have more blood going to this blood vessel, and this blood vessel will be bigger, okay? And now this blood vessel become bigger. And yani, we have a picture here of this, okay? This one, okay? And now this blood vessel, since it's become bigger, hello, it will contain more blood and it will increase the surface area. And if the surface area increased, the DL will increase once again. And now we will have more diffusing capacity, more oxygen will go to the blood. Is it clear? So now we have two mechanisms of exercise that increase DL. The first one is recruitment. We are recruiting more capillaries. The second one is distension, I guess was called. And yes, distension. It is like making the blood vessel going more bigger. So now we have also more surface area. And if we increase the surface area, we are increasing DL, we are increasing the oxygen that's going to the capillary. Is it clear? And by the way, everything is written here in this. I need understanding. So is it clear? Anyway, this is the first mechanism, which is exercise. Let's go to the body position, which is the supine position. Now, if you are standing, the blood, the gravity will take blood go down, okay, to the, let's say, legs. So now less blood will go to the lung. But if you are in supine position, okay, you are like this, and your, the blood will be mostly here at the lungs. So now more blood will go to the lungs, and it will cause the same thing as exercise. It will cause the more capillaries to be recruited, and it will cause more capillaries to be distended, let's say. And now we have increased surface area, and because of increase of surface area, we have increased DL. Is it clear? So now the second one is supine position. The supine position will cause more blood to go to the lung. And since more blood go to the lung, we will have distension, we will have distension, and we will have recruitment. So now we increase the surface area and the DL will increase. Is it clear? This one. The third mechanism is body size. It's not actually a mechanism, but if someone is small, okay, and someone is so much big, okay, let's say Dr. Paul and Dr. Atif. Okay, Dr. Paul is okay. Dr. Paul have a small body, so his lung will be small. The surface area will be lower. Dr. Atif, mashallah, has a big lung, so his lungs will be way much bigger than Dr. Paul. He can put Dr. Paul in his lung, mashallah. So anyway, his lungs are way much bigger than Dr. Paul, so he will have way much bigger surface area. So now Dr. Atif will have a higher DL than Dr. Paul, because Dr. Paul lungs are so much small and Dr. Atif lungs are so much big, and the surface area increased and DL will be increased. Is it clear? So now we have three mechanisms that increase the diffusing capacity. Exercise, body position, and body size. Exercise, when you exercise, you will have recruitment and distension, increasing surface area, increasing the DL, the diffusing capacity. The body position, when you are in supine position, it will increase the blood going to the lung, distension, recruitment. We have increased distension, the diffusing capacity. And body size, the more body size you have, the more lung size you have, the more surface area you have, the more diffusing capacity you have. These three mechanisms are related to the, not solubility, are related to the surface area and all increase the diffusing capacity. Is it clear? Okay. So now, all what we have took till now is related to the surface area. Now let's talk about pathological condition that actually may decrease diffusion capacity. The first one, not the first one, let's talk about them mainly. These pathological conditions may decrease surface area, like causing obstruction of the blood vessels, and now we decrease the surface area. Okay, this is, let's say, one of them. The other one, let's say it increased the thickness of the artery. Now we have the artery. If we made the artery bigger, it will contain more blood. But if we made it more thick, yani the epithelium of it is more thick now, the oxygen can't pass that easily, so it will decrease the L. So now the pathological conditions here are actually decreasing surface area by constructing the blood vessels and increasing the thickness of the blood vessels. So this pathological condition will decrease the DL. And actually, some of them decrease the capillary volume. Let's say the cardiac output decrease. So now less blood will go to the blood vessels. So it will decrease the capillary volume. We will decrease the pressure difference. It will decrease the surface area because more blood vessels will be constructed, not recruited, the opposite. So now this pathological condition, which is COPD, fibrosis, pulmonary edema, pneumonia, are actually increasing the thickness of the barrier and decreasing the surface area. And so this pathological condition decrease the L. Is this clear? You need to memorize them, by the way. Is it clear? Oh, okay. Everything is written, so yani, you can just read it. So now we reached a checkpoint. Everything is easy to now, صح? And that's honestly speaking. Did you understand? Because the next one yani, is heavy شوي. Once again, we are back to math. So till now, everything is cute and clear. Okay, let's start by solving the questions. We have two questions, right? Yeah, two questions. What happens during exercise? Yalla, you tell me. What happens during exercise? Blood flow is uniform through the lung. Lung diffusing capacity increase because blood flow is continuous all pulmonary capillaries. Pulmonary blood volume decrease. The transit time of blood in the pulmonary capillary does not change from rest. Which one? Okay, I see B. Oh, I see another B. I see a third B. Oh. Okay, I'm glad. Yes, it is B. It is B because, as we said, exercise will increase cardiac output. It will go to the lung, open more pulmonary arteries, cause recruitment and distension. So now we have blood flow is continuous in all pulmonary capillaries. Yes, you are right. It is B. The other question, the diffusing capacity of the lung for carbon monoxide is increased by what? Emphysema, asbestosis, or whatever, pulmonary embolism, exercise in normal subject, severe anemia. Okay, I see D. D, another D. E. Okay, to whoever said D, he is correct. Because now we have carbon monoxide is just similar to, let's say, oxygen. Okay, and it's not a big deal, it's just a gas. So now we have carbon monoxide here, we have blood capillary, carbon monoxide will diffuse and go through it. And as we said, exercise actually causes recruitment and distension, which increase the A, the surface area. So now carbon monoxide can actually pass more. And yes, it is D. Severe anemia is bad because, as I said here, if you have less blood going, yani, capillary volume, let's say, less blood going there, it will cause the blood vessels to opposite of distension. It will close. And so it will decrease surface area. And so it will, no, it will cause the DL to decrease. We want it to increase. Is this clear? Wait a sec. Yes. Is it clear? Okay. Now we are going to the real business. It is nice. I love it. I love it so much. But yani, it is kind of complicated. So let's start. Now we need to focus. Okay, yeah. As I said, the alveoli has oxygen. And now we have capillary, and it contains blood. This blood coming from the pulmonary artery is deoxygenated blood. So it has 0 O2, let's say. It's not 0, but let's say 0 O2. Okay, now this blood is going here. It has 0 O2. Enters. Now this 0 O2, let's say the O2 here is 100. Hello? First, the O2 will pass to the blood. So now this 0 O2 will change. It will become 10. Then it will become 20. Then it will become 30. What makes it increase? As we said, the pressure difference. Here is 100 and here is 10. So it will go more. It will go more. It will go more. Once it goes more and more, it's 100 and it was 0. The driving force is so much big, 100 and 0. Let's go, oxygen would go from here to here. But then it's increasing. At the end, it will be, let's say, 70. The difference between 100 and 70 is lower than the difference between 100 and 0. So the driving force will actually decrease, okay? Decrease till it reach 100 here. Now we have 100 here and 100 here. Is there a driving force? No, because 100 minus 100 is 0. And since it's 0, there is no driving force. And so that's it. It will go to 100 and that's it. It will stop. Can the blood in the capillary exceed 100 here in this example? No. The blood in the capillaries will never exceed the blood in the amount of oxygen in the alveoli because it's the driving force. Once it reaches 100, it's equal, it is 0. Okay, is it clear? This is important. Yes, I will repeat. And I will talk about also something else. Wait a sec. This is important, so I will keep repeating. I know my recording will be hell. It will be like 2 hours, but understanding is way much better. And my voice is slow. Try me with 1.75. You can understand. So now you have the alveoli and oxygen is entering, and we have the capillaries. The oxygen here in the alveoli level, let's say, is 100. And the oxygen level the oxygen level entering the capillary, let's say, is 0. So now there is a big difference between 100 and 0. So now oxygen will go from here to here, okay? And now let's say oxygen in the blood become 10. Then it will go more. It will become 20, 30, 40, 70. The difference now between 100 and 70 is 30. But the difference between 100 and 0 is 100. Here it's very big. The driving force is huge. But here the driving force is little, okay? So now it is decreasing. Hello? The driving force is decreasing till the blood in the capillary reach 100. Once it reach 100, now they are equal. Now the pressure is equal in both sides. There is no driving force. So now that's the max of it, okay? It's become full. The blood oxygen level is full, 100. Why? Because here it's 100. So now it can't surpass it. The blood in the capillary can't go for 150 because the driving force, once it reaches 100, it's 100 minus 100 is 0. And once it's 0, the oxygen will not go from alveoli to blood or the opposite. It will just stay there. Is it clear? أكيد. Everyone. يلا, I want some yeses or no, it's okay. طيب. Now, it's an important question. Now, since here it's 0 and oxygen is going from 100 to 0, and now 0 is increasing to 10, to 20, why this 100 is not decreasing? It's actually going from here to here. Why we don't say 100 and here it become 20, so the 100 become 80? And at the end it become 50-50. No, that's not the case because you are constantly inhaling. So now this 100, if it's decreased, you are inhaling once again. So it reached 100 again. And so no matter what, it will stay 100, let's say, okay? So no matter how much the oxygen go from the alveoli to capillary, it will not change. It will stay 100 at the alveoli, no matter what, okay? So now, as we said, the oxygen level can't surpass in blood, can't surpass the level of the oxygen in the alveoli because the driving force becomes zero. This is the most important concept here. So let's go back here. As I said, the blood, once it enters the capillary, once it enters here, its pressure is 40, not zero. Zero was for the example, but in real life, it's 40. So now it enters as 40. And in the alveoli, it's actually 110. Okay, please memorize this number. Once it enters the capillary, is 40. And the alveoli is 110. Hello? And now it enters as 40. And the difference is big between 110 and 40. Look, the difference. How much the difference? Here, let's change the color. Look how much the difference is big here. So now this is the driving force. So the oxygen level in the capillary is increasing. And look at the end, the driving force become low because the pressure difference is so low. It's actually reaching 110 till at the end it reach 110. So they are equal. It can't surpass it, but it can reach it. Is it clear? Yeah, because we need to go to the other part. Okay. Now, look, this is the capillary. This is the beginning of it. We just came from heart, and this is the end of it. We just finished the alveoli. Do we need this whole capillary to reach this full? The full is reaching the alveoli level of oxygen, the full, the max, okay? This is the full. Do we actually need the whole distance? No, we don't actually need it. Look to the graph. We actually reached the full at the middle. So we don't need the whole capillary to do this exchange and reach the alveolar level of oxygen, which is the max. We don't need the full length. We actually need half of it. Okay, so now this graph plots what's x and what's y. X is the distance. Here, the beginning of the capillary, and here is the end of the capillary after it's finished the alveoli. And here is the oxygen level. At the beginning of the capillary, before entering to the alveoli, it is 40. Then, once it reaches the alveoli, there is this gas exchange, and the driving force is big, so it's increase. Okay, so it's increase and increase at increase. And then it reached 110, the driving force is zero, and that's it, the plateau. It is max, okay? Where did we reach that? We reached that at the middle. Look, here is the end. We didn't reach the max, the plateau, where it's both 110 at the end. We reached it at the middle. So we don't need the whole length of the capillary to reach the max. We just need half of it. Is it clear? I think I'm asking, is it clear a lot, which is disturbing. Okay, now, another concept, then we go, I will jump from many concepts to relate it with another concept. Here we are plotting in distance, beginning and the end. But let's say we are talking about time. How much seconds the blood needs to go from the beginning of the capillary till the end of the capillary to finish this distance? How much seconds the blood needs? It needs 0.75 3/4. Okay, 0.75 seconds to go from the beginning till the end. Okay, now if I know that the oxygen or the blood from the capillary needs 0.75 seconds to go from the beginning till the end, okay, I know it's 0.75 seconds to go from the beginning till the end. This is a question for you. Does the oxygen need the whole 0.75 seconds? Does the blood need the whole 0.75 seconds to reach this plateau? No. Perfect. Yes, it doesn't need this whole timing because it reached it in the distance graph. It reached it at the middle of the distance. And so it needs the middle of the time, let's say around 0.40 seconds. Okay, so now I know that the blood, till it reaches the max level of oxygen it needs, yani in the alveoli, it doesn't need the whole distance, it needs just half of it, and it doesn't need the whole passing time, which is 0.75, it just needs half of it, which is 0.4 seconds. Okay, this is very important. Now let's go back to the normal things. These concepts are the most important. Let's go back. Now, as I said, this is the beginning, and this is the end. And we have 40, and we have 110. As I said, the oxygen, the blood, once it enters the capillary at the beginning, it's 40. Then the driving forces at the alveoli here, and the exchange of oxygen will cause it to increase till at the middle, it will reach the full, and it will cause a plateau, okay? That's what I said. It needs the middle of the distance. But what if we have a diffusing limitation? Like we have increased thickness or decreased surface area. So now oxygen can't actually pass normally, and it will reach the end, but it will not reach the max. It will reach the end of the capillary, but it will not reach the max, okay? That's if we have a diffusing limitation. So now, if we have, it's here, if we have the blood at the end of the capillary didn't reach the level of oxygen in the alveoli, it's still there is a distance, then we have something called diffusion limitation, because there is something obstructing this oxygen from going. That's why we reach the end. As I said, we doesn't need the whole length to reach max. We usually reach it at the middle. But now in the diffusion limitation, we reach the end and we are still not full because there is a diffusion limitation. So once you see that the alveolar oxygen level and the blood capillary at the end are not equal, then we have a diffusion limitation. Is it clear? Okay, we see this in oxygen, but we don't see it in carbon dioxide because, as I said, the solubility of carbon dioxide is 20. So here in its graph, you can see that it reaches at the end no matter what. There is obstruction, there is no obstruction, there is diffusion limitation, there is no diffusion limitation, it will reach at the end because its solubility is so much high. And by the way, carbon monoxide starts high and go down because we need to exhale it. It goes the opposite way. It goes from blood to the alveoli. So it actually decreases. So that's not related. You will take it then after, because this session is about oxygen mainly, not carbon dioxide. But just know, in carbon dioxide, the solubility is 20 times higher. So no matter what, there is no diffusion limitation. It will actually reach at the end to the level of the alveoli. Okay? Okay. These are very important concepts. And now this is the most complicated diagram, but we actually finished it. What is talking about? It's actually talking about what we said. Here, we have two diagrams. One is talking about distance. So we are talking about the beginning and the end. And here it talks about timing. Okay? We said, I know I'm repeating myself a lot, but it's important for me to everyone to understand. So sorry. So now, at the beginning, it enters as 40, and the driving forces cause it to go to 110, but not at the end, actually at the middle. Okay? At the middle, we reach full. This is the distance graph. We are talking about beginning and end. Let's talk about time. 0 second, 0.75 second. This is the whole timing that a capillary, blood in the capillary need to pass the whole capillary. And so we have the same graph, but here we reach the max where in the middle. But what is the middle? It is like 0.40 second. Okay? Now, this is a normal situation. What I'm saying is, in normal situation, when you are resting, not exercising, not doing anything, but you are just resting, you don't need the whole capillary length to reach the full oxygen level. You need just half of it. And you don't need the whole timing. You just need half of the timing to reach the full of it. Is it clear? And resting, we just need half of the distance and half of the time. to reach the full. Okay, that's in resting. What's happening in exercise? In exercise, you are exercising, doing something. So now cardiac output is increasing and more blood will go to the capillary. Normally, as I said, this is the capillary and this is the blood. It's floating normally in 0.75 seconds to finish it. But now the heart is pumping more blood and more blood is pushing and more blood is pushing. It actually makes it finish it way much faster. It makes it finish it in like 0.35 seconds, okay? It's pushing from the back. More blood is pushing from the back, that it caused the blood to go way much fast. So now the blood actually finished from the beginning till the end in what? In 0.35 seconds. Okay, so now the blood needs 0.35 seconds to finish the whole thing. Will that cause a diffusion limitation or not? Will we, because of exercise, we are pushing blood way much fast, and now we are causing the blood to finish the whole capillary length with 0.35 seconds. Will this cause a diffusion limitation or not? Will we reach the max or not? In exercise, do we reach the max or not? That's the question. Ilha, what do you say? We reach the max, exactly. This is correct. Why? Because as I said, we don't need the whole length and the whole time to reach the max. We just need 0.4 seconds, 0.40 seconds. So now, even if I made it go way much faster and it finishes it in, we reach the end in 0.3 seconds, 0.35 seconds, it's actually, by the way, the numbers are not accurate. The accurate numbers are in the lecture. It's not 0.4, it's 0.25. So I'm just making it with easy numbers. But still, let's talk about the real numbers. It actually needs, when it's actually in normal situation, near 0.25 seconds, okay? So now when we exercise, we are making it finishing the whole capillary length in like 0.35 seconds. Do we actually reach the max? Do we reach the alveolar ventilation max? Yes, because we don't need the whole length. We don't need the whole timing. We don't need this whole 0.75 seconds. We just need 0.25 seconds to reach the max. So even if I make it finish it faster and make it finish it in 0.35 seconds, I still can reach the max, because at 0.25, I already reached the max. I don't need this aslan 0.35. I already reached in 0.25. Is it clear? This is the graph. In normal situation, we are actually reaching the max here at rest. We are reaching the max from where? From here till here. We actually reached the max in zaman at 0.25. But yes, we will have a break after. We still have two concepts, then we will have a break because it's double lecture. Allah يعينكم and Allah يعينني. Just like 15 or 10 minutes, we will have a break. We are finishing the big concepts. After that, everything is easy. So now, in normal situation, to connect with what my colleague explained this, in the maximum alveolar ventilation is determined. Okay, I will say this, but let's continue. Normally, as I will finish fast, I promise. Normally, we start, we don't need the whole 0.75 seconds, we just need 0.25. And when we exercise, we finish the whole thing not in 0.75, we finish it like in 0.3, let's say, or 0.35. Do we reach the max in alveolar ventilation? Yes, because we just need 0.25, and that's it. If we made a new graph for this, the normal will be, as I said, the beginning, end, 40, 110. We will have it like this. We reach the max at the middle. That's in normal resting state. And for the seconds, we will have 0 and 0.75, and we actually reach the max at 0.25. That's in normal state. Let's talk about the exercise state. in the exercise state, for the timing, we actually reach the max by like, let's say 0.3 seconds, okay? And here it's 0. Do we reach the max? Yes, because when we reach the max, it's at 0.25. So now we reach the max, but barely at the end. Yani here, we reach it way much early, but in exercise, we barely reach it at the end. Yani we reach it because we have an excessive time from before, but now we reached it. Why? Because yani, we still have excessive time. But when do we reach it? Barely at the end, okay? And if we made a graph for distance for beginning and end, and here it's 40 and here it's 110, when does exercise reach where does exercise reach the maximum? It reaches, as I said, barely at the end, because blood is pushing, and look, where do we reach it? The max is the whole length timing is 0.3, and it reached at 0.25, so barely at the end. So here in the graph of length, we reach it barely at the end. Is it clear? This is so much important. Okay, that's for exercise. But now, as I said, in exercise, we barely reach it at the end. Let's say now we have a problem. We have an obstruction, we have emphysema, or any disease that decrease surface area and increase thickness. These things will cause decrease in DL. Okay, now DL has decreased. So now, what will happen to these graphs? If DL decreased, in the normal situation, we said we reach full at the middle. So even if DL decreased a little because of a disease, we still can reach the full, but we reach it at the end, okay? Because look, we have an excessive time, an excessive length. We reach it at the middle, and now we have a disease that causes obstruction, but we still can reach the full. Why? Because we have a very excessive time. We have half of it. So even if there is a problem, at the end, we reach the full, okay, before the end, okay? And for the timing, yani we reach at 0.25 out of 0.75. So even if we have obstruction, we can still reach the full, but yani we barely reach it at the end, like let's say at 0.6. So in normal condition, even if we have a disease and it decreased DL, we still can reach the end. Yani we can reach the alveolar ventilation max because we have an excessive time. Okay, but now what if we have a decrease in DL and we are exercising too? This is a problem because in exercise, normally in exercise without any pathological condition, we barely reached at the end. Look, we barely reached at the end. And we here in the timing, we barely reach at the end. And now I am adding a decrease in DL, we will not reach. We will have a diffusion limitation. Okay, so we will not reach the max alveolar ventilation, not here or not here. Okay, we will not reach. So in normal condition, because we have an excessive time and excessive length, even if we have a decrease in DL and a pathological condition, it's still okay. We will still reach the full, but barely at the end. But in exercise, if we have a decrease in DL, this is a problem because aslan, we barely reached at the end. So now we have a decrease in DL, we will not reach, okay? We will have a diffusion limitation. The alveolar pressure is 110, and at the end, the oxygen in the blood is like 70. It didn't reach 110 because it couldn't in exercise, because it barely reached at the end normally in exercise, and now we are adding a disease, it will not reach. Is it clear? Okay. Shall I continue or you want a break? Because we still didn't finish the first lecture. We still have one slide, and we have still 2 slides. Let's say 2 concepts. So tell me, what do you want? Continue. Okay, you don't mind. The IDs up. But anyway, now we finished 2 conditions. the normal, the exercise, and a third condition, which is if we have a diffusion limitation. What if I went to a mountain? Now we have a mountain, and I went to this mountain. In the mountain, the level of oxygen above is very low. So now we have a very low level of oxygen, okay, at the mountain. And now, if I went to the mountain, let's plot the things once again. At the beginning, at normal condition, and at the end, the 0 and 75, 40, 110. At normal condition, we reach at the middle. And here we reach at 0.25 seconds. That's at normal condition, okay? And now I went to a mountain and we have a decrease in O2. So I'm not breathing O2 normally. And so I will have decrease in DL, okay? Because when you breathe less, you will have less oxygen, less pressure difference. And so because I'm breathing oxygen less, I will not have, this is the alveoli, right? We said oxygen in alveoli is 110. I'm breathing oxygen less than normal. So it's impossible here to be 110. It will be like 50, let's say, okay? And so here, in normal condition of the high mountain, it becomes 50. The max is 50, okay? And here the max is 50, okay? Is it clear why it's 50? I feel it's clear. I don't know. I will wait till someone say it's clear. Okay, I went to a mountain, and this mountain above, we will have a low oxygen level because the oxygen is down because of the gravity. So now I'm breathing less oxygen. So now, as I said before, in the normal condition, we have in the alveoli 110 oxygen. But now I'm breathing less oxygen. So it's impossible to be 110. It will be something around 50 oxygen. Okay? That's in the high mountain. The level of oxygen decrease. So the level of oxygen I am breathing in the alveoli also decrease. And so now the max of the plot is 50, not 110. Okay? And now it's still the same. We have this graph. Because less oxygen is breathing, less cardiac outputs and this stuff, okay? At the end, you will have decreased DL. And because we have decreased DL, but we are still in normal condition. What happened in normal condition? We said in normal condition, we reach the max at the middle. We reach the max at 0.25. So now, even if I have a decrease in DL, I still have way much excessive time that I will reach the alveolar ventilation max, but at the end. Okay, I will reach it here at the end. Why? Because I have less DL, but I will not have a diffusion limitation and difference. No, because I have an excessive time. I have, look, the whole length, the whole half of the length is here with me to compensate. So now, even if I have decreased DL, it's still okay. I am reaching the alveolar ventilation, but barely at the end. And even here, I'm reaching it, but barely at the end. Okay? That's in high altitude condition. It's clear. Okay. Now, what if I'm going to a high altitude, but I'm exercising? I want to exercise on the mountain, or actually I'm climbing the mountain. What will happen? We said in exercise, we barely reach at the end. Normally in exercise, we barely reach at the end. Why? Because we will have increased pressure, increased cardiac output. So we don't finish in 0.75, we finish at 0.35. And now we barely finish at the end in exercise. And now I am barely finishing at the end in normal condition in exercise. And I went to high altitude and I have decreased DL. Now I will have diffusion limitation. Okay? And I will have here a diffusion limitation. To sum it up, in normal condition, okay, we reach the max at the middle. So even if I have a high altitude, I have a decrease in DL, I will reach the max, but at the end. okay? But if I am exercising, if I am exercising, I'm reaching the max at the end. And now I am exercising at a high altitude, or I am exercising with a low DL. If I am reaching the max at the end barely in exercising, and now I have a decrease in DL, I will not reach the max and I will have a diffusion limitation. So at the graph, this is the alveolar level of oxygen. I will not reach it. I will have a difference. I will be like 70 and it's 110. Is it clear? Okay. So last time, in normal condition, we reach at the middle of the time. So even if we have a pathological condition, we still reach, but barely at the end. But in exercise, we barely reach at the end normally. So if we have a pathological condition on that, we will not reach at all. Yeah, last concept, and we will have a break, I promise. Now, this is the alveolar level, 110. If I didn't reach it because of a pathological condition and something, I am called diffusion limited. Hello? Diffusion limited means that DL has a problem, so the diffusion didn't occur well between the alveoli and the blood, and so the oxygen didn't actually reach the alveolar max. So if there is a difference between the level of oxygen at the end and the level of oxygen at the alveoli, this is called diffusion limitation, which means that there is a problem in diffusion. Right. What if it's reaching at the end? We are reaching. Okay, this is called not diffusion limited, because we have no problem at diffusion. Here, the diffusion from oxygen to the blood has no problem. That's why we reach at the end. So we have two conditions. If we reached at the end, we max the alveolar ventilation. This is called not diffusion limited. And if we didn't reach, we are called diffusion limited. Okay? Why is this important? If it's so obvious, I know. Why is it important? If you are diffusion limited, then you are not perfusion limited. And vice versa. If you are not diffusion limited, you are perfusion limited. What does perfusion mean? Let's have a very nice example. I have a taxi. بصراحة this is Dr. Sham's example, okay? So give credit to him. I have a taxi and I have 4 people, and the taxi have 4 seats. These 4 people will go on taxi and just drive, okay? So now we reach the max. The 4 people, which are the oxygen, actually go to the taxi and reach max. Now, if I have 2 taxi, no, actually, I don't want this. This will take so much time. If I have 8 people, I increase the amount of people, but this taxi max is 4 people. These 8 people can't go here. They can't enter the taxi, okay? And so they need to wait. What is the people here is the blood, okay? So now, if I reach the max, which is 110, didn't we say that here in alveoli, if it's 110 and here is the blood here, oxygen level can't surpass the alveolar blood oxygen, the alveolar oxygen level. It can't surpass it, because once it reaches 110, 110 minus 110 is 0. And so the max of the blood, the oxygen level in the blood capillary is the same as the alveolar level. It can't surpass it. And that's called perfusion limited. No matter how much I increase the amount of people, 16, they will not go to the taxi. Taxi is full for 4 people. And here, no matter how much I increase the amount of blood entering from heart, entering the capillaries of pulmonary circulation, no matter how much I increase it, the max is 110, because that's how much I am breathing, okay? So now, if you are not diffusion limited, means you reach the max, then you are perfusion limited. Perfusion limited means no matter how much you increase the amount of blood, it has nothing. You will be maxed at 110. no matter what. So no matter what you increase the blood, it will cause nothing. Is it clear? That's what perfusion limited means. Perfusion limited mean no matter how much you increase the amount of blood, it will not change the amount of oxygen in this blood because it's already reached the max. It's not diffusion limited, means it reached the max. So even if I increase the perfusion, it will cause nothing because we already reached the max. What you are doing, we reached the max. Okay, is it clear? Okay, and now what will happen if we have the opposite condition? If we are not, if we are diffusion limited, I am here. I didn't reach the max. Now, if I increase the amount of blood, I may reach the max, okay? So now, if I am diffusion limited, if I am actually diffusion limited, if I didn't reach the max, then I am not perfusion limited. Because if I increase the blood, I may reach the max because I'm not at the max. So if I increase the perfusion, I may reach it. But if I am not diffusion limited and I already reached the max, even if I increase the perfusion, I'm already at the max. It's like you got an A, mashallah, okay, in CVP. No, your condition is HLS. And this is sad, by the way. You got an A in HLS, okay? And now you have the progress test. The progress test can't actually fix your HLS because it's already A. But that means that you are not diffusion limited. You reach the A, so now progress test is useless. But let's say in HLS, you reached A minus. And now progress test can actually increase the HLS grade to an A. So you are diffusion limited, you didn't reach the max, and now the progress test, which is perfusion, actually can increase your grade to an A. Is it clear? So now, if you are just, now you understand, now you just need to memorize. If you are diffusion limited, means you didn't reach the max, then you are not perfusion limited. And the opposite, if you are not diffusion limited, means that you reach the max, you are not diffusion limited, you reach the max, then you are perfusion limited, means no matter how much you increase the blood, you already reached the max. What the hell are you doing? Is it clear? Okay, last slide, I promise. Okay, we have two examples of perfusion and diffusion limited he usually asks about. We have a gas called N2O. This N2O has a special thing. This N2O, once it enters, okay, once it gains to the alveoli, it passes. It has a very high DL, diffusion capacity, so it passes. And so once it enters, it reaches the max. So now N2O is diffusion limited or perfusion limited? I'm telling you, N2O, once it enters, it reaches the max. Is it diffusion limited or perfusion limited? Perfusion limited, صح. So it's perfusion limited. Why? Because it's reached the max. So no matter how much we increase, we are not doing anything. Another example, last example, it's CO. CO, it enters, we took it, we just took CO. It enters and it binds to hemoglobin. So its level here, the pressure of it here is always zero or so much low because once it enters, it binds to hemoglobin. So now this is the max and here it is. Look how much there is difference. Is it diffusion limited or perfusion limited? Diffusion limited because it can't reach the max. And here are the actual graphs. Look to N2O. Once it enters, mashallah, it reached the max. So now it is perfusion limited. No matter how much we reach the blood, we will not do anything. Look to CO. No matter, it reached the end and it's still too low. Look how much there is difference. Then it is diffusion limited. Okay? It's not perfusion limited. If we actually increase the level of blood, look, it may actually increase. So now, this is the checkpoint. We have two questions. You want to solve them or have the break then solve them? Yeah, let's solve it. In a normal person, doubling the diffusing capacity of the lung, diffusing capacity is DL. Doubling the diffusing capacity of the lung would be expected to do what? Decrease arterial PCO2 in the resting breathing, decrease resting oxygen uptake, increase the uptake of nitrous oxide during anesthesia, increase the arterial PO2 during resting breathing, increase maximal oxygen uptake at extreme altitude. To be honest, this is a complicated question. Yani, if you really understand, if you really solve it, I'm proud. Okay, C. No, it's not C. But why you are sending direct messages? E. Okay. Any other opinions? Look, I'm proud I have two live people, yani, always, and the T 230. So D, okay, E, okay. Actually, it is E. Why? He is saying that you increased the diffusing capacity. So now you increased the amount of oxygen that it's passing. In D, it's resting breathing. So now you reach the max. In D, it's resting breathing. You already reached the max. So even if you increase the DL, you are doing nothing. Why? Because you are perfusion limited. Sorry, yeah, because you are perfusion limited. You are not diffusion limited. You have no problem in DL. So no matter how much you increased, you are actually at the max. So what is, okay. So now, is it understood why it's not D? Because it already reached the max. It's resting breathing, the normal condition. Okay. And now, even if we double D, even if we double DL, we are already at the max. So we are the perfusion limited. But if we think of E, increased maximal oxygen uptake at extreme altitude, we are actually maybe a diffusion limited. We may actually not reach it at the end. And so if we double DL, we will actually reach it because we are diffusion limited. If we double DL, we may fix this problem and reach it. Is it clear? Is it clear? It is a hard question, I have to say. Okay, the diffusing capacity of the gas the diffusion capacity of a gas is the volume of gas that will diffuse through membrane each minute for a pressure difference of one whatever. Which gas is often used to estimate O2 diffusing capacity? Which gas we use? Yes, exactly, it is B. I'm glad. Now this is the summary. If you want me to go to the summary, I'm fine. If you want me to have the break, I am fine. What do you want? The summary is literally everything. Okay, summary. السريع. I promise. Normal condition. At the beginning, at the end. Can I repeat last question? It's something we took at the beginning. We use CO. It's purely memorization, صراحة. We use CO to measure O2. That's it. It was mentioned at the first slide. I can't repeat explanation of it because it was an experiment and it's too long. I hope that you can see it in the recording if you didn't see it. So anyway, normal condition at the beginning, at the end, normal condition, we reach the maximum alveolar ventilation at the middle. Okay, that's the normal condition. Regarding time, we reach at 0.75. Okay, now at exercise, since blood is pushing, we actually reach the end. Let's change the color. We reach the end with 0.35. And so we still reach the max because we reach it at the middle. It's still 0.25. So we still reach the max. In exercise, we still reach the maximum alveolar ventilation. But if we have a DL, decrease in DL or diseases, in normal condition, we said we reach at the middle, but now we have a decrease in DL. So we reach the max, but barely at the end, we reach it. But in exercise, we aslan barely reach it at the end. So now we have a decrease in DL, we will not reach it. We will have a diffusion limitation. Okay? And that's regarding exercise and decrease in DL. Now, if we have a problem in the altitude, we went to high mountain. In the high mountain, the 110 will change to like 50. Why? Because the oxygen we're breathing is less. Okay, but still, that's not relevant. And it's not a big deal. 110 here. In the high altitude, we have decreased DL2, but in normal condition, we also reach at the middle. So at a high altitude, even if we decrease DL, we reach the maximum ventilation, but also barely at the end. But if we decided to exercise at the high altitude, like climbing the mountain, we in exercise normally barely reach at the end. And now we decrease DL, we will not reach because we also reach at the end. Now decrease DL, we will not reach. Okay, and lastly, we have the concept of diffusion and perfusion limited. Diffusion limited means that we didn't reach. Okay, that means diffusion limited. And so if we increase perfusion, the amount of blood entering, yeah, yani we may fix it, we may reach at the end. So if you are diffusion limited, you are not perfusion limited. But if we actually reach the max, if we reach the max here, if we actually reach the max, then we are not diffusion limited. And so we are perfusion limited. No matter how much we increase perfusion, the amount of blood, we already reached the max. What the hell are we doing? Okay. And that sums it up. Lecture 1 is done, finally. Lecture 2 is way much easier, for me at least, because it's concepts not really related to each other, but it is easier. So what do you guys think of lecture 1? Yalla, because we will take a break. Do you understand it? Honest. Okay, thank guys. We will have a break of 15 minutes because you suffered a lot, wallah. So you guys fine with to come back at 8:45? Oh, okay, now I need to start. Okay, it's not very big, like out of 37 slides, we finished most of them. Now it's easier, inshallah. In Sham's slides, it's 30 slides the first lecture. No, it's 30 slides the whole lectures. It's like 18 the first one and 12 the second one. So now we are at the 12 slides. So, and inshallah, it's easier. So let's begin. Okay, we have two circulations in our body. We have the pulmonary circulation and the systemic circulation. You have your heart, you have the four things, atrium, ventricles, and these things. The pulmonary, let's take an overview of the whole circulation. We have the blood coming from veins to the right atrium. This blood is deoxygenated. It has no oxygen. Then this blood go to the right ventricle. Then from the right ventricle, it goes to the lungs. And now in the lungs, it got oxygenated and it goes back as an oxygenated blood to where? To the left atrium. And from the left atrium, it goes to the left ventricle. And from the left ventricle, it goes to the systemic circulation of the whole thing. Pulmonary circulation is literally from the right ventricle all the way to the lungs and all the way back to the left atrium. This part is called the pulmonary circulation, this part. Okay, so now what are the differences between the pulmonary circulation and the systemic circulation? We have 4 or 3 differences, depends. Okay, so now let's start. The first difference is the left ventricle. Normally, the left ventricle, when it pushes the blood into the body, it goes through the arteries, it has a very high pressure, 120, because it's going to the whole body. Okay, so in the left ventricle, it's very thick. Push the blood, it has a 120 pressure. Okay, and at the end, when it's reached the end, which is the right atrium, the end of the systemic circulation, it is very low. It's around 4. Okay, so look the difference in pressure from the beginning till the end. The beginning is 120, at the end is 4. That's the systemic circulation. Look at the pressure difference. It's like 116. Okay, that's the pressure difference in the systemic circulation. That's in systemic circulation. The pressure at the left ventricle is 120 and the right atrium is 4. Now, what's happening in the pulmonary circulation? From the right ventricle, when it pushes the blood to the lungs, it doesn't need that much power because lungs and heart are so much close to each other. So the pressure is 20. And it goes all the way. Once it enters the atrium, it's like 6. Okay, look to the difference. It's only 14. And yani, look, it's 20. So now we know that the pressure of the systemic circulation is way, way much higher than the pressure in the pulmonary circulation. Okay, that's the first thing. So the first thing is the pressure of the systemic circulation is way much higher than the pressure of the pulmonary circulation, because in the systemic it's 120 and 4, and in the pulmonary is 20 and 6. Yani the difference is just 14. So first thing, the systemic circulation has a way much higher pressure. Look to the pressure, 120 and 4. And here it's just 20 and 6. So that's the first thing. Now we know another equation. That equation, I don't want you to dig deep to that equation, but that equation is saying the resistance is equal the pressure difference over Q. I don't care about the equation. I care about one thing. The resistance is proportionate to the pressure difference. So now if we have a high pressure difference, we will have a high resistance. And now, which one will be having a higher resistance? The systemic or pulmonary circulation? You tell me. Yeah, easy question. The systemic circulation, because the difference in pressure is 116. And here in the pulmonary, the difference is 14. So 116 pressure difference is way much high that it will have a very high resistance. And so the resistance of the systemic circulation is way much higher than the resistance of the pulmonary circulation. The systemic circulation resistance is called TBR, okay? And the pulmonary is called BVR, I guess, right? BVR. Okay. And now we know that the systemic circulation resistance is way much higher than the pulmonary circulation resistance, and it is 16 times higher than it. So the systemic circulation resistance is 16 times higher than the pulmonary resistance. Okay, the systemic resistance is 16 times higher than the pulmonary resistance. That's the second difference. The first difference is the pressure difference. The second thing is the resistance 16 times higher in the systemic circulation. Now to the third difference, which is very important. Just a sec. Yeah. Here we have, this is a blood vessel, and you took the blood vessels. What? You said question mark. What was Q? The blood flow. Not relevant. Anyway, yeah, Q is the blood flow. The resistance equal V over I, it's the same. Resistance equal the pressure difference over Q. Q is, here is the current, here is the blood flow. So anyway, let's go back. Yeah. The third difference is, in blood vessels of the systemic circulation, we have sympathetic nervous system, parasympathetic nervous system, sympathetic cause vasoconstriction, parasympathetic cause vasodilation, and these things play a role in the resistance and pressure and these things. In pulmonary circulation, we don't have any of this. We have the sympathetic and parasympathetic, but they don't do any action, okay? Their action is very minimal that we don't really consider it that much. It's not important, except in one situation, we will mention it later. But normally, the blood vessels, the pulmonary blood vessels of the pulmonary circulation is not regulated through sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. It's regulated through something called transmural pressure. What is this? It's the difference of pressure between the lung and the pleural space, okay? In the pressure inside the artery in the lung, okay, is 10, and outside it's like 20. Okay, this difference will cause the artery to constrict. Okay, but what if it's opposite? It's 20 here and 10 outside. It will cause it to dilate. So now this transmural pressure is playing a very major role in the pulmonary circulation, not in the systemic circulation. Pulmonary circulation have transmural pressure, which is the pressure difference between inside and outside, okay, the artery, the lung space and the pleural space, yani inside the artery and outside the artery. Of course, in the systemic circulation, we have a pressure inside and outside. So why is it not important? Look to this. In the systemic circulation, we said, and normally the blood vessels pressure is 120, okay? And so let's say the outside is 0, okay? Let's say the outside is 0. And now I added more 20, okay? So now here it's become 140. 120 divided by 0, not divided, minus 0 is 120. And 140 minus 0 is 140. We notice that the difference is only 20, the 20 we added. And the 20, this 20 related to this 120 is just 1/6. So it's not that difference. We added 20, but we already had 120. So this 20 is not playing a major role. But look to this in the pulmonary circulation. Inside we have 20. And outside we have 0. And we added a 20. Now it's 40 and outside is 0. It's like we doubled it. So the transmural pressure difference is actually playing a major role in the pulmonary circulation because it's actually, if we added a pressure, it's actually have a big difference. From 20, 0 to 40, 0 is like doubling it. But in the systemic circulation, from 120 to 140, we didn't add any. It's similar to this. I don't know if you know the story, but if you have 10, you have 10. It's not a story, something. If you have a 10 real and I gave you 10 real, you will have now 20 real. So I gave you double what you have. I made you to have double what you have. But if you had 1,000 and I gave you 10 real, you will have 1,010. It's nothing. I did nothing to you. Okay, and it's the same here. If we added 20 pressure to the pulmonary circulation, it would really cause a difference. So that's why the transmural pressure is actually playing a role in the pulmonary circulation, not in the systemic circulation. Is that clear? Okay. So now the forces that act on the systemic circulation is actually active forces, which are sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. But in the pulmonary circulation, it is passive forces, which are the transmural pressure and these things. Okay, now we have a very important slide, and it's very important. We have 3 types of vessels. I care about 2. 3 types of vessels in the pulmonary circulation. First, we know that we have this bronchus, bronchi, and these things till we reach the alveoli. Now, between these alveoli, we have capillaries. Okay, now I have a capillary here. Okay, this capillary, it's this one. Wait, it's the alveolar capillaries. Okay, this alveolar capillary has a special situation. What is this special situation? This is an alveolar capillary. If I inhaled more, I will have more oxygen in the alveoli. And now the alveoli will turn from this to this. So now this alveoli will be like this. And this alveoli will be like this. And this capillary will be compressed in between these 2 alveoli, which will increase its resistance. So alveolar capillaries are capillaries between the alveoli. Once we inhale, these alveoli will get big, and these capillaries will get compressed. And since it gets compressed, it will have a high resistance, increased resistance. So first type of vessels is alveolar capillaries, and alveolar capillaries have a high resistance when we inhale, because alveoli will get big and it will compress them, so we will have a high resistance. The second type of vessels are this one, the large extrapulmonary vessels. It's like you have the lung, and it's a vessel that supplies the lung, but it's outside it. Okay, and we have the pleural space here outside. And now if and it has elastic fibers and these things, this artery. And now if I inhaled, this pleural space will get big, and this lung will get big, and this artery will get stretched by them. When the pleural space gets stretched, it will take this artery with it, and now when we inhale, the extrapulmonary artery will get pulled by the pleura, and it will get vasodilated, and so it will have decrease in resistance. So now we have two types of vessels. The alveolar capillaries, when we inhale, the alveolar gets big and it compresses the alveolar capillary, which will increase its resistance. On the other hand, we have the extrapulmonary vessels. When we inhale, the pleural space will, the pleura will stretch it, and since it gets stretched, it gets vasodilated and it will have decrease in its resistance. Okay, so it's two opposites. One gets increased resistance when we inhale, which is the capillaries alveoli, and one get decrease in resistance when we inhale, which is the extrapulmonary vessels. Is it clear? Very important. Okay. So now we have a third type, but this type صراحة no one cares about. It's the arteries and veins that branching together with the bronchial system. You see this bronchus and bronchi, it goes with it and it branch with it. It got no effect. Its pressure is equal to the pleural pressure. It doesn't get compressed or doesn't get stretched. Okay, so no one cares about this. We cares only about the alveolar capillary and extrapulmonary vessels. The alveolar capillary, its pressure is lower than the outside pressure. So the outside pressure will compress it, and now we will have high resistance. The extrapulmonary have a pressure similar to the, it's higher than the outside, but similar to the outside, let's say. So when the outside get big, it will get stretched with it and it will decrease resistance. Okay, and you can read the things here, but I don't usually read. Okay, now let's go to another thing. We appealed this in the midterm, and it is from the cardio, and we got it wrong. That's why he brings it here. I don't want to explain it, but because he brought it, so I will explain it. Now we have our heart. Actually, I will use his diagram. Now we have our heart, and I want to measure the pressure in the right atrium, in the right ventricle, in the pulmonary artery, and in the left atrium. Okay, how will I measure it? I use something called this one, pulmonary artery balloon catheters, Swan guns. Okay, I put this in one of the veins that go to the right atrium. Okay, and it goes to the right atrium. In the right atrium, it measured the pressure. Now it measured the pressure of the right atrium, and it seems to be low, 5 to 0, something like this. Okay, it's just a concept. The numbers, you should have memorized it in cardio, not here. Then this catheter will go to the right ventricle, and now in right ventricle, it's compress itself so the blood can go, and now it will have a very high pressure, which is 20, and 0 when it dilates. Okay, well, I forgot what we call when we compress it and when it dilates. Who cares? When it compresses itself to send the blood, it becomes 20. When it dilates, it becomes 0. Okay, that's for right ventricle. Now we pass it to the pulmonary artery. Now we reach the pulmonary artery. Pulmonary artery will have the same as right ventricles when we compress it, okay, because it will have the blood that goes from it. So it will have the same thing, 20. But when it dilates, when the right ventricle dilates, we have a valve here, the pulmonary valve, let's say. When it's closed, it prevents the pressure from going down because the blood will reach here and stop. So when it compresses itself, it will have the same pressure as the right ventricle. But when it dilates, the valve closes and it prevents it from going to 0. It stops here at 10. Okay? And now this catheter, balloon catheter, everything I said now should be clear since cardio. But now this balloon catheter, I want to measure the left atrium. But imagine, I will use this balloon catheter to go to the lungs, then from the lungs to the pulmonary vein, then from the pulmonary vein to the left atrium. Doesn't make sense. So we have another method. If I close the blood flow here, the blood here will be constant till left atrium. So left atrium will have a constant pressure. From here to here, we will have a constant pressure. So what do? I inflate this balloon, So now this balloon is here compressing, or يعني, obstructing. Okay, so now I have an obstruction here. Blood here will be constant all the way to the left atrium. And now if I measure the blood here, pressure here, it's the same blood pressure here. So now I know the blood pressure in the left atrium. Is it clear? Okay. Now, this is يعني related to the first lecture, but I like it. والله. Now we have the heart. In systemic circulation, I want you to tell me. In systemic circulation, we have the heart and we increase cardiac output. And so the heart is يعني, compressing more. So now we have more blood going to the vessels by increasing the cardiac output. What will happen to the resistance and pressure and these things in the systemic circulation? Let's say resistance. If I increase cardiac output, what will happen to the resistance? It's increase. In the systemic circulation, it will increase because when I increase it, I will increase the pressure and increasing the pressure will increase the resistance. Can you please explain the last slide, repeat it? السريع, I will do it, yeah. Here, yes. If I want to measure the pressure, I put a catheter and go to the right atrium. In the right atrium, we know this pressure. It's like around 10 to 0. Then I pass it to the right ventricle. In right ventricle, when it's compressed, it reaches 20. When it dilates, it reaches 0. Okay, then I pass it to the pulmonary artery here, pulmonary artery. Pulmonary artery, when right ventricle compress, it opens and it takes the same pressure of the right ventricle. So it's 20. But when the right ventricle dilates, the valve here close of the pulmonary artery and it prevents it from going to 0. It's going down, then the valve close, it makes its pressure here as 10. That's why the pulmonary artery have 10, not 0, because the valve close at 10. And then I want to measure the left atrium. Imagine I need to go with this catheter to the lung and from the lung to the pulmonary artery and then from pulmonary artery to the left atrium. Doesn't make sense. What do? I inflate the balloon here. So I obstruct the pathway. So the blood here will be constant all the way to the left atrium. And so if I measure the pressure of blood here, it's the same as here because it's constant blood, okay? And so if I measure that here, I know the left atrium blood pressure. That's a technique, the pulmonary artery balloon catheter swung guns technique. Okay. And now the cardiac output. If I, in systemic circulation, if I increased cardiac output, I'm increasing the pressure, I'm increasing the resistance. That's in systemic circulation. But things are way much different in the pulmonary circulation. Why? If I increased cardiac output, we took it in the first lecture. If I increased cardiac output, now I am sending more blood to the lung. I will have recruitment, which is more blood vessels will be open. And so now I have recruitment, I increase the surface area and I increase the blood vessels, I will decrease resistance. Also, if I increased cardiac output, the blood vessels itself will have distension. And if I have distension, it will cause the blood vessel to vasodilate, which will decrease resistance. But mainly it's about recruitment. صراحة. It's not mainly about distension, it's mainly about recruitment. If I increase cardiac output in the pulmonary circulation, I am recruiting more blood vessels, which will cause them to open, يعني vasodilate, and now I have decrease in resistance. So this graph is very important, but it's only for pulmonary circulation. Here I have the pulmonary arterial pressure, and here I have the resistance. If I increased cardiac output, I am increasing the if I'm increasing cardiac output, I'm increasing the pressure. If I'm increasing the pressure, I am opening more blood vessels. I'm causing recruitment and distension. And so the resistance will go down. So only in pulmonary circulation, cardiac output is indirectly, or let's say inverse relation. If I increased it, if I increase cardiac output, I will decrease the resistance because increasing cardiac output will open more vessels and so it will decrease the resistance. only in pulmonary circulation. Is it clear? Okay. Yeah, that's it. That's literally what I just said about this graph. Checkpoint. If I don't want to put a question for this lecture except at the end. So is everything clear till now? Okay. All clear. So let's continue. This concept is something we just talked about, but now it's a graph. Let me remind you, we said we have two types of vessels, actually three, but we care about two. We have alveolar capillary, and we have the, this is one, and we have the extrapulmonary vessels, The alveolar capillary are between the alveolar. If I inhaled, if I get more oxygen like this, if I inhaled, these alveoli will get big. And now once it's big, it's compressing this blood vessel. And once it compresses it causes increase in its resistance. And so the alveolar capillary, when we inhale, it will increase its resistance. On the other hand, we have the extrapulmonary vessels, which is at the lung here. Once we inhale, the pleura will take it with it. It will stretch it. And so when we inhale, it will get stretched, it will get vasodilated, and we will have decrease in resistance. So it's opposite things. When I inhale, the alveolar capillary will have increase in resistance, and the extrapulmonary vessels will have decrease in resistance. What if I exhaled? When I exhale, the alveolar will get small. And so these blood vessels will come back to normal and its resistance will decrease. But on the other hand, the extrapulmonary vessels, when I exhale, the pleura will come back to normal, it will constrict it once again, and so its resistance will increase. But I want you to focus on the thing of inhaling. So when I inhale, the alveolar gets big, it compresses the alveolar capillary. But the pleura stretch the extrapulmonary vessels and it will cause decrease in its resistance. Is it clear? Okay. Then what the hell is this graph? I don't like this graph. What is this graph? It's something literally related to what we talk about. FRC is when you exhale normally. Now I exhale normally. Now I have a few amount of air in my lung, okay? Now I inhaled. When I inhale, okay, let me orient you a little. This pink is alveolar capillary pressure. The purple is the extrapulmonary vessels, and here is the total resistance of both of them if I equaled it. So now what's happening? If I, at FRC, inhaled, I took a breath, okay? Alveolar vessels will get compressed and its resistance will increase. This one. But the extrapulmonary vessels, the pleura will stretch them and it will cause vasodilation of them, and so their resistance will decrease. And so what's the total? The total is increase in resistance because this one will overcome this one. The alveolar resistance increasing will overcome the extrapulmonary vessels decreasing. And so when I inhale, the total resistance is increase in the resistance. Okay? Now, what happened in the opposite? I exhaled, but now I can exhale more. If I exhaled more, the alveolar will get small more. And so the alveolar capillaries will get stretched. And now their resistance decrease. The alveolar capillary, when I exhale more than normal, because FRC is when you exhale. If you exhale more than normal, the alveolar will get more small, and so the vessels will get big, and the alveolar capillary vessel will get vasodilated, and so its resistance decrease. But what will happen in the extrapulmonary vessels? We said when we inhale, it gets stretched. So when we exhale more than usual, it will get compressed. Okay? And so its resistance will increase. And so now what's the total? The total is also increasing in resistance. Okay, because the increase in resistance of the extrapulmonary vessels is overcoming the decreasing in alveolar capillary. And so what's the conclusion of all of this? When I inhale, the alveolar capillary resistance increase, but the extrapulmonary decrease, but the total is increasing. And vice versa, if I exhaled more than normal, more than FRC, the alveolar capillary resistance will decrease, but the extrapulmonary vessels resistance will increase because it's getting compressed, and the total is still increasing in the resistance. And so if I inhaled, I will have increase in resistance. And if I exhaled more than normal, I will also have increase in resistance. So what's the lowest point of resistance is at FRC, if you don't inhale or exhale more than normal. This is the lowest resistance point, and it is an MCQ. What's the lowest resistance point? And the answer is at FRC, because at FRC, we have the lowest resistance point. If I inhaled, the alveolar capillary resistance will increase, the other one will decrease, but the total is increasing in resistance. If I exhaled more than FRC, the extrapulmonary vessels resistance will increase because it gets compressed, and the alveolar is decreasing, but the total is still increasing. And so FRC is the lowest resistance point, because if I inhaled, I'm increasing resistance. If I exhaled, I'm also increasing resistance. And so FRC is the lowest resistance point. Is it clear? Okay. This was a very major point. يعني بصراحة I would put a checkpoint, but we don't have a time. So let's go to another concept. I said before that the pulmonary circulation, I said before that the pulmonary circulation is not regulated through sympathetic and parasympathetic system. It's regulated through passive forces, which is the transmural and these things. Yani the pressure inside higher than outside, so it gets compressed or dilated and these things. Except in one condition, we have sympathetic nervous system actually working, and that condition is hypoxia. What's happening in hypoxia? I have an alveolar. I have another alveolar. And I have blood vessel here and blood vessel here. Suddenly, I have obstruction here in this alveolar. So now I have an obstruction, oxygen can't go, and now this alveolar have hypoxia. And so this is bad because now this blood vessel is actually sending blood to get oxygen, but there is no oxygen here because it's obstructed. And so this alveolar will have hypoxia. So what's our body reaction to this? There is blood passing here, but it's not getting oxygenated because of hypoxia here. There is no oxygen here. So there is no need for this blood to come to this alveoli since there is no oxygen in it. And so here, the first time, sympathetic nervous system will vasoconstrict this vessel. Once it's vasoconstricted, blood can't go from it because there is hypoxia. There is no need for blood to go here. There is no oxygen in this alveolar. And so we have vasoconstriction, blood can't go through this vessel, and it will go through another vessel. This another vessel will have vasodilation. Is it clear? Okay. Now, what caused this vasoconstriction? You need to know the mechanism, sadly. Once hypoxia happen, it will inhibit potassium channel. Once potassium channel are inhibited, we have increased potassium inside the vessel. Increased potassium will increase calcium. It will open calcium channel. Once calcium channel open, it will cause influx of calcium. Influx of calcium will cause vasoconstriction. And that's what caused the vasoconstriction of this vessel, and the other vessel will get vasodilated through because blood are going through it. This is called, this is what's called, it's one alveoli hypoxia. No, not sodium. I'm talking about potassium. Okay, I'm talking about potassium. Actually, maybe sodium increase, but يعني that's not what's important here. Because potassium channel close, potassium will stay inside more. Since potassium is inside more, it will depolarize it because potassium usually wants to go out. And since it depolarized, calcium channels get open, calcium enter, cause vasoconstriction. Okay? And vasoconstriction يعني will cause the blood to go to the other side. But that's good. That's actually good because we don't want blood to go through this vessel because there is hypoxia here. What's the point? I will have deoxygenated blood. Okay, maybe sodium depolarize after potassium close, but it's not something important now. Now, what's important? I have one alveoli getting closed, having hypoxia, and so the blood vessel here will cause vasoconstriction. So now, no matter what, if you have hypoxia here, this blood vessel will have vasoconstriction, no matter what. So now, if I have hypoxia here, I will have vasoconstriction here and blood will go through the other vessel. But what if I have something called generalized hypoxia? This is bad. What's generalized hypoxia? Generalized hypoxia means that all alveoli in your lung have hypoxia. Yani from a moment, we talked about having hypoxia in one alveoli, but now I'm talking about generalized hypoxia, having hypoxia in the whole alveoli in the lung. And now if I have generalized hypoxia, all these alveoli will have hypoxia and all blood vessels will get vasoconstricted. And now since all pulmonary blood vessels got vasoconstricted, this will cause pulmonary hypertension. It will increase the pressure so very much, okay? And so in generalized hypoxia, all blood vessels get vasoconstricted because all alveoli get hypoxia, and so it causes vasoconstriction to all blood vessels. Is it clear? And this is bad because if this happens, it will cause pulmonary hypertension. Is it clear? Okay. But now, yani, God always gave us things because we need it. So why did God gave us this mechanism of generalized hypoxia causing vasoconstriction of everything? It should have some function. It actually does. When we were young, it's function only when we are fetus. When we are in our mom uterus, we are fetus, our lungs are not functioning. Okay, and so from where we are getting oxygenated blood, if you remember, we get it from umbilicus. And now if I'm getting blood, oxygenated blood from umbilicus, it doesn't need to go to the lung and these things. خلاص, it go to the systemic circulation. How will I prevent this blood from going to the lung? It's by generalized hypoxia. When you are baby, you are not breathing, okay? And so these alveoli have generalized hypoxia. And so these blood vessels are vasoconstricting, and so blood will not go to them. The oxygenated blood from the mom will go through everything except the lung because of generalized hypoxia. Is it clear? Okay, that's good. We actually finished a very major points. Now, then let me see what we still have. We still have three concepts. Yeah, three concepts and we finished. Alhamdulillah. Wow. Okay, and this is very important concept. Yeah. And it's related to what we just said. And that's what I like about this session. Now I have an alveoli. I have another alveoli. And when I breathe, oxygen go to both equally. Okay. And so the blood vessels here are getting the same amount of oxygen equally. That's the normal condition. Everything is equal. I have no hypoxia here, no hyperoxia on the other side. No, everything is, wait. Everything is normal, okay? What if something happens that causes more oxygen to go here and less oxygen to go to the other one? How our body will react to make it equal once again? Let's imagine that this happened. I have an alveoli that is getting way much high oxygen. And I have another alveoli that's getting way much low oxygen. Okay? And now here we have a blood vessel, and here we have a blood vessel. Okay, what is happening? What's happening is this this alveoli is very, يعني when you took it with the Yazan, I think, when you breathe, you actually making oxygen enter and carbon dioxide go out. And so when we breathe a lot, we have hyperoxia, which is high oxygen, and hypocapnia, which is low CO2. Okay, and so if this one getting very high much ventilation, the big one, it will have very much high oxygen, but it will have very low CO2 because it's getting a very much high ventilation rate. Okay, and so what will that cause? When you have first let's say I want it from here. When you have this very big alveoli, it's actually compressing this blood vessel, صح? Because we said that when you have alveoli getting way much oxygen, it compresses the alveolar capillary, and so this oxygen will have vasoconstriction. And so how will our body react? It has a vasoconstriction, but we have very high amount of oxygen. This is bad, and actually it's vice versa. Here, no, I don't want to go. Okay, wait, yeah. Here we have CO2. Our body has a reaction. If we have a low CO2 in a place, it will cause bronchoconstriction to that place. And so the bronchus here, it will get constricted. And so this alveoli will go back to normal because of low CO2 causing bronchoconstriction. And so the bronchus are constricting. And so the alveoli is coming back to normal once again. But what's happening on the other side? On the other side, I have hypoxia because I have very low O2. And so what does hypoxia cause? Here, I normally, without hypoxia, I have a blood vessel that is big because this alveoli is not compressing it. Imagine having a big blood vessel with a low oxygen. This oxygen can't actually oxygenate the whole blood vessel. And here, on the other hand, we have a very big alveoli that it's compressing its blood vessel. And so I have very low amount of blood and very high amount of oxygen that's not going to diffuse. And so how our body would react, it's the hypocapnia here, the hypocapnia, low CO2, will cause bronchoconstriction. And so it comes back to normal. Okay. And now this small blood vessels will come back to normal and we have a normal diffusion. And since here, in this small alveoli, we have a low amount of oxygen. So we have hypoxia. And I just said hypoxia causes vasoconstriction. And so this very big blood vessel with hypoxia of the alveoli will get narrowed. And so small alveoli with a small blood vessels. Big alveoli with a big blood vessels. That's one way of correcting it. That's the hypoxia mechanism. The hypoxia causes the small alveoli to have a small blood vessels and the big alveoli to have a big blood vessels. And the other mechanism, which is correcting the whole thing, is the hypocapnia. The hypocapnia, low CO2 in the big alveoli, causing bronchoconstriction here. And so this alveoli will go back to normal and the other one will have the air, and now it's go back to normal once again. Is it clear? It's complicated, I know, I may repeat it, but يعني, tell me, is it clear? Okay. يعني, forgive me because I want to repeat it one last time because يعني, I think it's very major. The next thing are easy. If I have a non-equalized ventilation, here we have very high ventilation, high O2, but low CO2. And here we have low O2 and high CO2. Here we have a blood vessels that's getting compressed by the alveoli, so it has low blood. And here we have a big blood vessel because it's not compressed by the alveoli, and so it has high blood. Imagine having high blood to the low O2 alveoli and having low blood to the high O2 alveoli. This is bad. Our body needs to correct it. How? First mechanism, here we have low O2. Low O2 is hypoxia. Hypoxia causes vasoconstriction of this big blood vessel that's not compressed. It causes vasoconstriction of it, and so it gets compressed. And so now the low O2 go to the vasoconstricted blood vessel, which is equally, and the blood will go to the other blood vessels, which gets bigger, and now we have high blood to the high alveoli, the big alveoli, high O2 to high blood. Now it's corrected. It's still not normal, it's not cool, it's not normal to have big with small. Your body still wants to correct this. We have, because the big one have high ventilation, it has hypocapnia, low level of CO2, and hypocapnia, low level of CO2, cause bronchoconstriction, and so this bronchus will get constrict, and now the alveoli go back to normal, its blood vessel is normal, and the air that was going to go here, it go to the other one, and the small alveoli gets bigger to normal, and its blood vessels go back to normal. And now we have two mechanisms, it's written here. We have two mechanisms. First mechanism is the hypoxia mechanism, where we have vasoconstriction, and we have the other mechanism, which is the hypocapnia, which is the bronchoconstriction. Is it clear? And everything is in the slides. Right. Now I want to ask you a question. Well, it's a checkpoint. Hypocapnia causes bronchoconstriction. Where? In which alveoli? The big alveoli or small alveoli? Hypocapnia. The big, in order to make it small. Type hypoxia cause vasoconstriction. Where? At the big or at the small? At the small, yes. And so, guys, do you have any question? Is everything clear here? Yes, it will cause vasoconstriction to the big artery. You went out of the box. Yes, صح. Is there any question? Something? All good? Okay. Two more concepts and we finish. And sorry, I know you have TBL tomorrow. Thanks for attending. I love that you have this power to attend a PAL session today while you have a TBL tomorrow that's not related. But yalla, I'm glad, wallah. Last two concepts. The first one is the other one is easy. We have a bronchus stuff and these things, and now I have a lung. Lung is divided to three parts: upper, middle, and lower. And if I ask you a question, which one of these will have the higher oxygen level? The upper, the middle, or the lower? Which one of these alveoli, if there is alveoli here, alveoli here, alveoli here, will have the higher oxygen level or the higher air level? The lower? Really? Why? No, it's actually the higher. It's weird that you said lower. Okay, but it makes sense that it goes this way. But oxygen is a gas, and gases actually flow up, right? It flow up. So normally, you will have the highest amount of oxygen above, okay? First, because it's the first one that's reach, the air reach it. The first one is the upper one. And second, because gases are against gravity, they go up. And so we will have the highest amount of gas at the most upper part of the lung. And now, if I have the upper part of the gas, the upper part, of the lung, having the highest amount of oxygen, its alveoli will be so much big. And so it will compress the blood vessels. Is this right? I will have here the highest amount of oxygen, and so it will have a big alveoli, and now it will compress the blood vessels. On the other hand, here I will have a low amount of oxygen, and so alveoli will be small. And now I have a very big, small, but it's not hypoxia, but it's a small. so the blood vessels will be big because it's not compressed. And now we are getting to a concept. We have three things. We have the alveoli itself, it has a pressure. What's this pressure called? It's called PA, the pressure of the alveoli. We have a blood vessel entering capillary, let's say. At the beginning of it, we call it's coming from an artery. So at the beginning of it, we call it PPA, the pressure of the pulmonary artery. And finally, at the end, we have PV, the pressure of the venous side of the capillary. Actually, PPV, pulmonary vein. And now I have the pressure of the alveoli, the pressure of the pulmonary artery, and the pressure of the pulmonary vein. Yalla, it's easy. Well, we just Aslan said everything. I know now from what I have explained that the oxygen level is the highest here at the top. So at the top, if we saw these things at the top, the alveoli will be the biggest at the top. And now we have a very, very, very high pulmonary artery pressure. Pulmonary artery, sorry. We have a very high alveolar pressure. Okay, and now the blood vessels will get compressed completely. And so we will have a low pulmonary artery pressure and we have a low pulmonary vein pressure. Why? Because the pulmonary pressure of the alveoli is so much big that it's compressing the artery and the vein and the capillary. It's compressing everything. So these will have a very low pressure because it will have a very low amount of blood. And so at the top of the lung, we have the pulmonary, the alveolar pressure bigger than the pulmonary artery pressure, bigger than the pulmonary vein pressure. Okay, that's at the top of the lung. Is it clear? Okay. Now let's go at the lower of the lung. I don't want the middle now. Let's go at the lower type, the lower part of the lung. We have a low amount of oxygen, and so the alveoli will be small. And so because the alveoli will be small, we have a very big blood vessels from both sides because it's not compressing it. And so the pulmonary artery pressure is bigger than the pulmonary artery vein, and pulmonary artery vein is bigger than the alveolar pressure because, as I said, oxygen doesn't go that much to the lower part of the lung because it's a gas, it go up. And so it is very small alveoli, so its pressure is very small, and so the pulmonary artery pressure is higher than the pulmonary venous pressure, and pulmonary venous pressure is higher than the pulmonary alveolar pressure. Is it clear? Okay. The last part here of this diagram is the middle. I hate the middle, but it's the middle. And you can now expect what will happen at the middle. At the middle, we have not very high amount of oxygen, but we have a high amount of oxygen. Not very high, but still high. And so the alveoli will compress, but it will not compress the whole capillary. It will compress the end part of it, okay? Because it's not very big. If it's very big, it will compress the whole thing. But if it's a little bit big, it will compress the end of it. And now if the end of it is compressed, I will have the pulmonary artery pressure still high. It's not affected. But the pulmonary venous pressure, it will be decreased. And now if I plot everything together, I will have a pulmonary artery pressure high, which is higher than pulmonary alveolar pressure, which is higher than the pulmonary venous pressure. Okay, and that's because in the middle, the alveoli will only compress the venous side, and so the artery is still very high, and the alveoli is a high a little bit, but the venous part is low, and that's how we plot it. Is it clear? Is it clear? Okay. And now if we see it here, if we plot it, Here we have a very big alveoli, so it's compressed from both sides, artery and vein, and so the alveoli pressure higher than the artery, higher than the vein. Here at the middle, it's big, but it's not big that much, so it's compressed only the venous side, and so the artery is still the highest, then the alveoli, then the venous. At the end, it doesn't have that much oxygen. Yeah, at the end, it doesn't have that much oxygen, and so it doesn't compress at all. So the artery is higher than the venous, and the venous is higher than the alveoli. Now, when the blood vessels got constrict or compressed, do you imagine that it will have a high blood flow or low blood flow? Low blood flow. So at the top, we said the alveoli is actually compressing so much that there is no blood flow. So here, zone one is the highest one, okay? Zone one, the highest one, then zone two, the middle, then zone three at the end. Zone one, having very big alveoli, compressing the whole blood vessels, there is no blood flow. Here, we see perfusion, there is no blood flow. Zero, look, zero, there is no blood flow. Okay, now at zone two, it's getting compressed, but that's, it's still have some blood flow. And so in zone two, we have a little bit of blood flow. At zone three, there is no compression. Look at how much the artery is big. And so it has a very big blood flow. And look how much the blood flow. It's not decreasing. I hate how he made the graph here, but perfusion or the amount of blood flow is actually X, not Y, it's X. And so it's increasing if we go to the right, okay? So I don't care that it's going like this down, digging down. It's X, we care about X. And X in zone one is 0. X in zone two is like, let's say 50, and X is zone three is very big. Look how much it is, that the blood flow is very big. Is it clear? Blood flow is X. And so zone one, X is 0. Zone two, X is 50. Zone three, look how much X is big. It's got shift to the right. And so is it clear? Wallah? Yes. Yalla. Last, so this is the same, but I just said everything. Yani. I said it's plotted here. And now the last thing, the anatomical shunts. Yalla. Normally, we said we have the heart. The heart receiving blood from the veins, then it's sent it to the lung. And then from the lung, we have a pulmonary vein going to the left atrium, and from left atrium to left ventricle, and left ventricle to the whole system. It's a closed system that blood go through these arteries and veins in one direction. There is no other direction. It goes to the right atrium, from right atrium to right ventricle to the lungs, from the lungs. It's just perfect one direction way. What is a shunt? Shunt is like, I am here and this is your house, and the road, the traffic tell me that I need to go like this, but no, I ride a bicycle and I go like this. This is a shunt. Shunt is a shortcut, طريق مختصر in Arabic. So it's another way that I can go to. Okay, and so in our pulmonary circulation, sadly, we have shunts, and shunts are not good. We have two anatomical shunts, normal in our body. It's not pathological to have them. Everyone have them. I will start with the coronary circulation shunt. So now we need to draw a real heart. Not real heart, but Now let's say this is the heart, okay? You took with Dr. Akif that there is here something called coronary venous sinus. Coronary venous sinus is actually receiving all the coronary venous blood. Coronary means it's the blood vessels that's supplying the heart itself. And so we have a coronary vein called Thepesian vein, okay, vena cordis minimi. This vein is actually draining here. It's going and drain to the coronary venous sinus. That's its destination. That's not a shunt. That's the normal. Somehow, this vein send a branch and drain into the left atrium. Now, what's the problem? The left atrium is receiving blood from the pulmonary circulation, and it's receiving oxygenated blood. But the blood in this coronary vein, Tipasian vein, is not oxygenated blood. It's not, okay? It doesn't have oxygen. And so now, normally, we will have 100% oxygenated blood in the atrium, left atrium. But because of this shunt, the coronary Tipasian vein shunt, it's actually sending some unoxygenated blood to this left atrium, and so we will not have 100% oxygenated blood. It will decrease. We will have, like, let's say 90% 90% oxygenated blood, because we mixed it with an unoxygenated blood, and this is bad, okay? Because we the whole 2 sessions we are trying to reach the maximum alveolar ventilation, to have a maximum oxygen, and then a shunt at the end give you some unoxygenated blood decrease. Okay, this is the first shunt, right? Total cardiac output. Yes, just a minute. Yeah, that's the first one. Now to the second one, the last one. This is the last shunt, the last concept we finished, alhamdulillah. We have the bronchus, the lung, and we have a pulmonary artery going to the lung, and a pulmonary vein going from the lung to the left atrium. Okay, this pulmonary vein that going from the lung to the left atrium has 100% oxygenated blood. The pulmonary vein that go from the lung to the left atrium has 100% oxygenated blood. Normally we have this bronchus is in anatomy is something. It needs an arterial supply. So we have bronchus artery, bronchus vein, and these things. Bronchus artery go to this bronchus and bronchiole and these things and supply it. And then we will have the bronchial vein. The bronchial vein will actually go out and go to drain to the left, to the right atrium or the jugular vein or something. I don't care. Okay. It will drain to something. Mistakenly, it will send a branch, which is a drain to the pulmonary vein. And now this is unoxygenated blood, deoxygenated blood. It sent some unoxygenated blood to the pulmonary vein, and pulmonary vein, we said it has 100% oxygen. And so this 100% will not be 100% anymore. Let's say it will have 90% oxygen, and it will go to the left atrium, and it will decrease the amount of oxygen. And so in conclusion, we have 2 normal anatomical shunts in our body. The first one is the Tipasian artery, the minimus, something, coronary minimus, something. And this artery is going to the, it should go to the coronary venous sinus, but somehow it drains to the left atrium, and it has unoxygenated blood, so it decreases the oxygenated blood level in the left atrium. The another one is bronchus vein. Bronchus vein, it should drain to something, and this something drain to the right atrium, but mistakenly bronchus vein drain to the pulmonary vein, which should go to the left atrium with 100% oxygen. And so it decreased the level of oxygen, and it's become 90%. And now we decrease the level of oxygenated blood in our body, which is bad. Okay. Finally, we have pathological shunts. It shouldn't be there. Normally, fetus has a shunt called the foramina ovale and ductus arteriosus. This is normal, okay? Normal. This normal in human fetus, but after you grow up, it's closed. This shunt closed, the foramina ovale and ductus arteriosus. And you studied it with Dr. Paul and Dr. Akif, I'm pretty sure. Normally, it exists, but when you grow up, it's closed. If it didn't close, it will cause a pathological shunt, because the shunts we just talked about, the coronary and bronchial, are normal, not causing a big deal. But these human fetus shunts, the foramina ovale and ductus arteriosus, if they didn't close, this is now a pathological shunt. But Dr. Shams, I saw our recording, and he said it's not important, and you will talk it with Dr. Akif and Dr. Paul, so he will not explain it, and he actually didn't explain it. And so that's it. Did you understand the idea of shunts? Sure. Yeah, I need another yes at least. Okay. There is one last thing he mentioned, but in my batch, he said, I will skip it since you already took it with Dr. Peter. Allah yarhamullah. Yeah, that's complicated. Never mind. But yeah, and the Dr. Peter who died. And Dr. Abdul Jabbar. You should have taken it with Dr. Simon. And I remember one of my friends called Sahar. He showed me and he said it's not included, but in the midterm, but he explained it, which is the hydrostatic pressure and these things. If you have a capillary, you have a high hydrostatic pressure, high ocnotic pressure, and these things. Do you take it? Okay, I will just mention one thing about it, since it's you already took it. At the days you took cardio, when you have high hydrostatic pressure and these things, the fluid will go out and cause edema. Edema in a systemic place, in the heart or something. In the pulmonary, in the lung, if it goes out, from the lung vessels, pulmonary vessels, it will accumulate in the pleura and it will cause something called pleural edema. And that's it. That's the difference. You have other difference, but Dr. Shams على أيامي said no, don't study it, and he actually didn't bring any question from it. It's not أصلا in the objectives. And there are something related to surface area, that if you increase surface area, you will increase the level of edema. These things, but you can study it alone. But على أيامي Dr. Shams said don't study it, and he literally bring no question. It wasn't even in the objective, and so we finished. Alhamdulillah. Just solving question and we are done. Yalla, let's solve. Or you want to break? I don't know. Your mind should have been. No. Let's solve. Okay. Yalla. Compared with the systemic circulation, the pulmonary circulation has what of these? Higher blood flow, lower resistance, higher arterial pressure, higher capillary pressure, higher cardiac output. B, lower resistance. Exacto. Because if you have lower pressure difference, you will have lower resistance. And that's the case of pulmonary circulation. Amazing. Yes, it's B. The other question, if an area of the lung is not ventilated because of bronchial constriction, the pulmonary capillary blood serving that area will have PO2. That is, I want to explain one last thing, names. If you have this blood vessel and this is the alveoli and this is the blood, the blood vessels itself. If this part is called, if the blood vessels coming from this part, it's called mixed venous blood. Okay, it's called mixed venous blood. Okay, and if after it finish, it's the end of the capillary blood pressure, something like this, I don't care. So I just wanted to talk about the mixed venous blood. This side is called mixed venous blood. This side is the pulmonary artery, pulmonary veins. Okay, but if the artery came here and it didn't get any oxygen from here, then its oxygen level is equal to what? It's equal to the mixed venous blood. It's the blood vessel that came here. Okay, because it didn't get any oxygen. Let's get back to the question. If an area of the lung is not ventilated because of bronchial obstruction, the pulmonary capillary blood serving that area will have PO2 that is equal to atmospheric PO2, the PO2 of the outside world, equal to mixed venous PO2, equal to normal systemic arterial PO2, which is the arterial PO2 after it finish, higher than inspired PO2, lower than mixed venous PO2. Yalla. B equal to mixed venous PO2. B, yes, exactly. Because if I have a lung that's not bronchial obstruction, the alveoli will not have any function. And so the blood will go from here to here without any oxygen getting to it. And so it's equal to mixed venous blood, the blood vessels that just came. If it got actually if there is no obstruction and there is O2 diffusion and these things, then it's equal to normal systemic arterial PO2. This thing is what's after. But since it is an obstruction in the alveoli, if we have an obstruction in the alveoli, here an alveoli and it got obstructed, then there is no O2 diffusion, then the blood from the beginning till the end has no difference, and it's equal to mixed venous blood, PO2. You took mixed venous PO2 and these names before, right? In another PAL or in another lecture. That before it's called mixed venous PO2, like this. I guess you took it. Yellow, last question. Yes, you took it. In which vascular bed does hypoxia cause vasoconstriction? Coronary, pulmonary, cerebral, muscle, skin. What do you think, guys? Yes, B. It is pulmonary. Why? Because as I said, when you have here an alveoli and it's got hypoxia, low level of O2, we don't need this high amount of blood that got passed here and doesn't get oxygen. So hypoxia mechanism caused this blood vessels to go to vasoconstriction, and so blood doesn't go through this blood vessels and go to another unhypoxic alveoli. Okay, so in pulmonary only, when you have hypoxia, you have vasoconstriction. But I just need to say this: hypoxia not in the blood vessel itself, hypoxia in the alveoli. So now, if I have hypoxia in the alveoli, the blood vessels must go vasoconstriction because there is no need for blood to pass here because there is hypoxia in the alveoli. There is no oxygen diffusion. But if there is hypoxia in the blood vessel, then it must go to, it must get, it has nothing, vasoconstriction or vasodilation, nothing. It has no effect in the pulmonary circulation. It's go, and actually it's always hypoxic. It's always here have no O2. Actually, then get diffused with O2 and then have O2. But in the systemic circulation, when you have hypoxia, you have vasodilation to make blood go to this area and give it the oxygen it needs. Only in the pulmonary bed or the pulmonary circulation, if you have hypoxia here, it will cause vasoconstriction. And that's because we don't need this blood vessel to pass here, because if it's passed, there is no diffusion because there is no oxygen. It goes to another alveoli. It's better. So only in pulmonary circulation, we have vasoconstriction after hypoxia. Is it clear? And that's it. We reached at the end. Do you have any question? Wait just a sec. Yes, do you have any question? Oh, I'm shining. Welcome. Yeah, best of luck on your TBL tomorrow. Welcome. I hope you guys understood. I took a little bit long time, but inshallah you get the benefit from it. Thank you.